started exactly 1 month ago. It was a Saturday, and I found myself in an unexpectedly quiet place. My grandmother's dacha in a village so remote that I swear the birds had better Wi-Fi than I did. My brother and I had come for the weekend. At 19, I was full of curiosity, the kind that finds itself restless when the outside world isn't busy enough. My brother, 2 years older, was happy to do nothing, so there we were. Just two people, an empty house, and an overwhelming sense of boredom. At first, the idea of just sitting on the internet seemed the simplest way to fill the time. Yet deep down I craved something more exciting, something with a little more energy to shake things up. And then, like a light bulb, it clicked. Why not have a swing party? The thought made me smile to myself. Sure, a swing party at my grandmother's dacha. Who would even think of something so out of the blue? But hey, there was literally nothing else to do. The village was so small, I doubt anyone would hear anything out of the ordinary. And besides, Grandma was nowhere to be found. She was off on one of her mysterious errands, so there was no need to worry about her walking in on anything. I pulled out my phone and started making calls to friends. This wasn't the first time I'd planned such a thing. I had experience with a crowd that liked to attend these types of gatherings, and it was always an adventure. One by one, the invites went out, and the responses were positive. Of course, everyone was excited to come. The idea of a quiet weekend in the countryside, with no one else around, and an open invitation to break away from the norm. They were all in. The best part. The village was practically deserted, so we could make as much noise as we wanted without disturbing anyone. I felt the rush of anticipation build in me as I made the preparations. The thought of what would happen next kept me awake longer than I'd planned, my mind swimming with possibilities. But there was one little hitch: my grandmother's return. She usually came back after a few hours, but what if she decided to come home early? I shook the thought away. She wouldn't be back for hours. That was enough time for whatever fun I had planned to unfold. Besides, what were the odds of her stumbling upon a group of friends laughing and chatting, right? I texted the last few people who hadn't responded yet. Everyone was on their way. The tension in the air was thick, and I found myself getting more excited by the minute. A swing party wasn't just about meeting new people. It was about seeing how far you could push your own boundaries. It was about letting go, embracing the unknown, and seeing where the night would take you. As I put my phone down and looked at the setup, I thought to myself, well, here goes nothing. As I waited, I decided to start getting ready. I slipped into the bathroom, feeling the warmth of the shower waiting for me. The cool water hit my skin, washing away the sweat that had built up from the anticipation of the night. I closed my eyes as the steam enveloped me, letting my mind wander. The vivid images of the night ahead played like a movie. I imagined the high, the rush of excitement as people began to arrive. But most of all, my thoughts kept drifting to one person, my classmate. I could already picture us together on the couch, laughing and talking, just enjoying the night in each other's company. It was the thought of that moment, that connection, that had me feeling restless. But the clock was ticking, and I couldn't afford to lose track of time. I finished my shower, quickly dried off and got dressed. My nerves were buzzing with every movement. Just 30 minutes left, I thought. It's almost time. As I walked out of the bathroom, I froze. There she was, my grandmother. Home. I couldn't believe it. This was not supposed to be happening. I glanced at the clock again, my stomach dropping. People were supposed to be here soon. What was she doing home? My heart raced, and panic started to set in. I was already mentally counting down the minutes until the gathering began. And now, my grandmother's unexpected return was throwing everything off track. I walked up to her, trying to hide the growing frustration and anxiety bubbling up inside me. I had to figure out how to handle this quickly. But before I could say anything, she turned toward the others in the room. I can't believe what I'm seeing. This isn't how we behave at home, she said, her voice firm. Everyone was on edge now. My friends, who had been relaxed just moments ago, exchanged awkward glances. My brother, who had been sitting on the couch, tried to avoid eye contact, but his unease was evident. Everyone out, my grandmother suddenly ordered. Now. I couldn't believe it. My grandmother, who had always been kind and forgiving, was upset, and there was nothing I could do to calm her down. The atmosphere in the room shifted from light-hearted to tense in an instant. She was serious. Her eyes were stern, and I could tell she wasn't going to tolerate what she had just walked into. There was a moment of hesitation before everyone started to gather their things and head for the door. I felt embarrassed, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel a bit of frustration. This was supposed to be my night to unwind and let go, but now it was all unraveling in front of me. My grandmother's presence felt like a damper on everything. As my friends filed out, some of them looked back, offering me sympathetic smiles, but there was nothing they could do. The door closed behind them with a soft thud, and it was just me and my grandmother left in the house. The silence was deafening. When everyone arrived, there were only 3 men and 2 women. I had expected more guests, but it was still enough to get the night started. I suggested we begin by opening a bottle of wine to help us all relax and warm up. The atmosphere immediately lightened, and laughter filled the room as we all took our time to chat and enjoy the evening. Everyone looked great, but my classmate stood out the most. There was something about him, his charm, the way he moved through the room, that caught my attention. After finishing the bottle of wine, the mood had definitely shifted. People started to get more comfortable, and the next step was inevitable. We all found our spots and settled in. I turned on some background music to create the perfect atmosphere, letting the soft beats fill the room and set the tone for the evening. Everyone made themselves comfortable, and I chose to relax on the couch, next to my friend Sarah. I lay back, enjoying the calm and the warmth of the room. My classmate joined me soon after, offering gentle, soothing motions to help ease the tension in my muscles. It wasn't anything intense, just some relaxing movements to help me unwind. I closed my eyes, allowing myself to get lost in the sensation of relaxation and the peaceful energy in the room. My brother, who was sitting nearby, also joined in, offering the same calming motions to help release the tension from the night's excitement. First, I hesitated. I was used to my brother offering me relaxation techniques, but with my classmate joining in, I didn't know how to feel. Still, I chose to stay in the moment, letting the gentle movements take over. I felt at ease, despite the slight discomfort I initially felt. I lay there, eyes closed, letting the calm of the evening wash over me. From the other side of the room, I could hear Sarah laughing, her voice rising with excitement. "This is the best place to have a party," she exclaimed, and I couldn't help but agree. There was something magical about the vibe in the room that made everything feel effortless and free. The night was unfolding, and all I had to do was let it happen. As I lay back on the couch, I could feel the warmth of the room wrap around me. The music played softly in the background, and the conversation hummed, creating a comforting, relaxed atmosphere. The evening was unfolding in ways I hadn't anticipated, and I felt completely at ease. The sensations of the moment were heightened as my classmate continued to give me a gentle massage. There was something about the way he worked, skillful yet calming, that helped me unwind even further. My muscles, tense from the anticipation of the night, seemed to melt away under his touch. I closed my eyes, savoring the peace of the moment. Just as I was drifting into a state of calm relaxation, there was a sudden shift. He stopped, setting the massage oil aside, and instead, in a playful moment, grabbed something unexpected from the table. It was a bottle of something light-hearted, nothing too serious, but it caught me off guard. His unexpected gesture made everyone laugh, easing the atmosphere even further. The feeling of being completely in the moment, yet not knowing exactly what would happen next, was exhilarating. I decided to take a short break and went to the shower to freshen up, washing away the playful mess. It gave me time to reflect on how much fun I was having, but also how unpredictable the night was becoming. When I returned, I found the vibe had shifted again. My friend Sarah had joined us, and we all fell into an easy rhythm, with more laughter and shared moments. As the night wore on, the energy in the room grew, but there was no pressure. It was all about enjoying the company and letting things unfold naturally. Sarah and my classmate took turns chatting with me, making sure I was comfortable. We didn't rush anything, and there was no expectation, just an easy connection. The night was unfolding smoothly, with everyone in good spirits and no one in a rush. We were all just enjoying each other's company, laughing and chatting as the music played softly in the background. The atmosphere felt like one of those moments where everything seemed to align perfectly, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that the evening had been so relaxed. The laughter and easy conversation made the room feel cozy, like a little world of our own. It wasn't until later in the night that the unexpected happened. Just as I was chatting with Sarah, I heard the faintest sound of the door creaking. My heart skipped a beat. Was someone outside? I tried to brush it off, assuming it was just the wind or the house settling. But then the door opened wide, and there she stood, my grandmother. The shock hit me like a wave. I couldn't believe it. My grandmother, who was supposed to be away taking care of her friend, was standing right there in the doorway. She looked surprised but not angry. Yet, it was clear she had no idea what was going on, and the moment felt like it had frozen in time. For a second, everyone in the room fell silent, unsure of how to react. My grandmother looked around, her eyes scanning the group of friends who had gathered. She seemed confused, trying to make sense of the scene before her. I could feel my stomach knotting up. I had no idea how she would react to what she had walked in on. "Lisa, what is going on here?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, a mix of curiosity and concern. I could feel the heat rise in my face as I stammered, trying to think of an explanation that wouldn't raise more questions. But before I could say anything, she turned toward the others in the room. "I can't believe what I'm seeing. This isn't how we behave at home," she said, her voice firm. Everyone was on edge now. My friends, who had been relaxed just moments ago, exchanged awkward glances. My brother, who had been sitting on the couch, tried to avoid eye contact, but his unease was evident. "Everyone out," my grandmother suddenly ordered. Now, I couldn't believe it. My grandmother, who had always been kind and forgiving, was upset, and there was nothing I could do to calm her down. The atmosphere in the room shifted from light-hearted to tense in an instant. She was serious. Her eyes were stern, and I could tell she wasn't going to tolerate what she had just walked into. There was a moment of hesitation before everyone started to gather their things and head for the door. I felt embarrassed, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel a bit of frustration. This was supposed to be my night to unwind and let go, but now it was all unraveling in front of me. My grandmother's presence felt like a damper on everything. As my friends filed out, some of them looked back, offering me sympathetic smiles, but there was nothing they could do. The door closed behind them with a soft thud, and it was just me and my grandmother left in the house. The silence was deafening. "I don't know what to say, Grandma," I finally muttered, trying to gather my thoughts. I wasn't sure how to explain myself, but I knew I had to say something. She sighed heavily, her face softening just a little. "I don't know what happened to you, Lisa. This isn't the girl I raised," she said, shaking her head. "I've seen some things in my life, but this isn't right. I want you to understand that I care about you, but what's going on here is not the way we live." I felt a lump form in my throat. I could feel the weight of her disappointment. It stung, but I knew she was right in her own way. This wasn't how I wanted to be seen, and yet I had let it happen. I had let the evening slip from something fun and carefree into something that felt shameful. "Grandma, I'm sorry," I said softly. "I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I just wanted to have a little fun, to do something different. I didn't think about the consequences." She sighed again, her gaze softening a bit. "I know, honey. I know you're trying to figure things out, but there are better ways to do it. And I won't pretend that this is okay with me. I love you, and I want you to remember that whatever happens, you can always come to me. Just think before you act next time, all right?" I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. My grandmother's disappointment was still there, but so was her love. She wasn't giving up on me, even if I had let her down, and that meant more to me than I realized. As the night came to a close, I reflected on everything that had happened. The excitement, the tension, the chaos. It all felt so much more complicated now. But it was a lesson. A reminder that sometimes, the thrill of the moment can cloud your judgment. And sometimes it takes someone close to you to bring you back down to earth. I walked into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea, sitting quietly at the table. The night had been full of unexpected turns, and while I wasn't sure how things would go from here, I knew one thing. I was ready to learn from this. I had learned about my limits, about the importance of respect, and most importantly, about the power of the relationships in my life. The morning after was nothing like I had expected. I woke up with a headache, the remnants of the wine and the chaotic events from last night still lingering in my mind. The house was quiet, and the sunlight streaming in through the window felt too bright. My grandmother had left early to run some errands, and I was left alone with my thoughts. The whole experience felt like a whirlwind, and I wasn't sure how to process it. I spent the morning cleaning up the remnants of the party. Empty glasses, a few scattered pieces of clothing, and the faint scent of perfume still hanging in the air. It was strange how everything had shifted from excitement to regret in such a short time. What had started as a fun, carefree idea had turned into something I hadn't anticipated, and now I was left to deal with the consequences. As I packed my things and prepared to head home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a mistake. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind, reminding me that I had let my curiosity get the better of me. Last night had been about seeking something new, but now, as I sat in the quiet of the house, I realized that it had also been about running away from the things I wasn't ready to face. On the drive home, my thoughts swirled like a storm. I could still picture the faces of my friends, laughing and carefree one moment, then awkwardly shuffling out the door the next. The whole night felt like a blur, moments of excitement, mixed with a creeping sense of discomfort that I had ignored. I had wanted to break free, to experience something different, but in the end I wasn't sure if it had been worth it. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a moment, the engine idling before getting out of the car. As I walked into the house, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. I couldn't help but feel like I had betrayed not just my grandmother, but myself. I had let the thrill of the moment blind me to the bigger picture. What had started as an innocent escape had turned into a series of decisions that left me questioning who I was becoming. That night I sat alone in my room, replaying everything in my mind. The laughter, the awkwardness, the unexpected confrontation. It was all so much to process. And while the world outside seemed to be moving on, I was still stuck in this moment of self-reflection. I thought about the conversations I had with my grandmother. I had felt like she was judging me, but now I realized she was just worried. She had always been there for me, guiding me, even when I didn't want to listen. And I knew that deep down she was right. I needed to stop running from things that made me uncomfortable and start facing them. Life wasn't about seeking thrills to fill a void. It was about finding meaning in the quiet moments and understanding the value of the relationships I had. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a mix of regret and resolve. I wasn't proud of what had happened, but I wasn't going to let it define me. I would learn from this, grow from it, and hopefully come out stronger. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most important lessons come from the moments we wish we could forget. But I knew one thing for sure. I would never forget this night. Not because of the mistakes I made, but because it taught me to be more mindful of the choices I make and the people who truly matter. I will tell you this. I wrote this story so that you could learn from it. I regret what I did, and I would never recommend you to do what I did.